What's up, guys? We just got episode 7 of season 2 titled Goin to the Chapel, and this was essentially a full-on exorcist episode. There was exorcist visuals, there was an actual exorcism, there was exorcist lines, there was pea soup vomit. You know, you get a lot of different references, a lot of different homage throughout this series, and this one was pretty obvious. So you have the characters that now have the Chucky doll that has good Chucky inside of it that's starting to glitch out, and you have Nika, you have Andy, you've got the evil bitch who's like the doctor, you've got Father Sawa, everybody together trying to pull off an exorcism to expel the Charles Lee Ray soul out of the doll. And I'm still mixed. I'm still mixed. There was aspects of this episode that I did enjoy, aspects that I had fun with, and I still have the same overall issue that's really starting to creep in here at the end especially. But nonetheless, you have all the characters, all the kids are kind of dealing with the grief of the death of Nadine, especially Lexi. She starts to take pills again. You get a scene with like a ghost Nadine, and of course you get the re-entrance of Kyle, the reunited of Kyle and Andy, and a couple of surprises along the way. All the while you have Glenn and Jennifer Tilly in the doll and Tiffany inside of Jennifer Tilly heading towards the chapel. And what I liked about this episode was, there was this neat little effect that they did in the visuals during the confessional sequences that it kind of had a bit of a Sin City look to it, to where it was all black and white with the exception of certain colors like the red in the suit in a couple of them, or the red hair in Glenda, a couple other characters, and I thought that was a neat look. It was something neat to kind of give it a flashback effect, which most of those were as we got throughout the story of the episode. It was cutting back to whatever their confessional was. So I liked the visual with that one. I also think that it was a really good performance by Devon Sawa in this episode, where he gives a bit of a revelation towards his character. He doesn't outright say it, but he pretty much lays it out that he is struggling with his sexuality, and that's what kind of made him want to go into being a priest and, always questioning who he is. And it was a really good performance. It was the most emotional that I've seen him get, maybe ever, but certainly in the Chucky movies. And, seeing him kind of give more of a dramatic performance was interesting. Devon Sawa was always good. I was always a huge fan of his back in the day, but it was in family movies and then things like horror comedies. He didn't have a whole lot of dramatic side to his characters in those movies. And so it was an interesting thing to see him do. So I thought he was really good in this one. I also did like a couple of the lines from Chucky, one in particular wherever he was kind of taunting everybody. He was like, "You think I'm scared to go to hell? Fuck that shit. I'm from Jersey, bitch." And it was just a really good Chucky line. And, most episodes try to get at least one of those kind of classic one-liners in there, but that might be one of my favorites of the season thus far. I also liked the little scene that we got to where Kyle and Andy, thinking that they have now vanquished Chucky once and for all, are kind of starting to look forward to the future, and they cut it in with the end of Child's Play 2. I thought that was actually a really nice touch, and as a huge fan of Child's Play 2, I appreciated that. And finally, I do think there was some pretty good gore effects in this one, both on human characters as well as Chucky. There was a shot where he gets the bottom part of his jaw taken off with a bullet that I actually thought was a pretty gnarly effect, and seeing him lay on the ground and trying to talk and breathe with nothing but his tongue hanging down on the top of his mouth was actually kind of disturbing in a way. I never thought I'd be disturbed by a Chucky death, but it was gnarly. It was gnarly. I was kind of surprised how gnarly it was. And now moving on to some things that I didn't care so much for. Well, I still am struggling a bit with the characterization of Tiffany here / Jennifer Tilly. I mean, it just feels like her character's not very consistent. She was always this very confident, evil person that in any situation she always had the upper hand. And I don't quite understand why she's scared and flustered and, by the end of the episode is like emotional and like asking Nika to forgive her and stuff like that. Because, yeah, I mean, Jennifer Tilly's now wanted for murder, but just go to a different body or something like it. I don't know. I just didn't think that the emotional side of her made a whole lot of sense. Feel free to let me know down below if you disagree, why you think that did make sense. I've never seen Tiffany get that way, and for as campy and over the top as she has been all season long, I just felt like that didn't quite mix with even the version of Tiffany that we've been giving this season. This is admittedly a nitpick, but when you have Brad Dourif given the voice of Chucky and they're going to decide to go the Exorcist route with all of the, homage and all of the references, I really, really was disappointed that they didn't do any references from Exorcist 3. I know The Exorcist is the one that's more the pop culture phenomenon. That's the one that's more quotable. It's the one that more people will recognize, but god damn, you got the Gemini killer right there. Nothing for me? All right. Moving beyond that, there was two things that happened in this episode that actually kind of frustrated me. One was the fact that the Jennifer Tilly inside of the Tiffany doll got killed, because it kind of felt like, well, that was a waste then. Bringing her back made no sense, because it was framed as this big reveal for everybody that, we haven't seen this doll since Seed of Chucky in 2004. Everybody presumed she was dead with the axe to the head at the end of that movie. And so when they showed that she was in a cage, it's like, oh, holy crap. So Jennifer Tilly actually is alive. So how's that going to play into things? Are they going to swap again? Is Jennifer Tilly going to mess things up for Tiffany? And essentially she was just kept in a cage and then bound up and then ran away and got creamed by a truck. And it's like, well, what the fuck? So really that meant nothing then. She could have been dead this whole time. We were in the exact same spot we were in now. And possibly even more so, one of the big reveals in the last 10 minutes or so of the episode is that you get that accomplice that comes in. If I remember correctly, she was the teacher or the guidance counselor from season 1. And she comes in and it's like, oh, so she was in on it too. So they had somebody watching them in season 1 and they had somebody watching them in season 2, and then she gets killed. And okay, cool. So you revealed that to give us a surprise, and then it goes nowhere. So again, if she didn't show up, if you didn't have that twist, we would still be in the exact same spot that we were in right now. And I said this last week, so I'm not going to harp on it too much here, but here again in this episode, I just feel like I don't understand what can happen and what can't happen within the context of this show anymore, because there's just no rules. There's just no rules to follow. There's no boundaries. There's nothing that is any kind of a restraint on what Chucky's able to do or his accomplices or what Damballa or any of that stuff. You basically can just do anything. And so they're exercising his soul, and somehow that soul goes into Devon Sawa's character, and then he dies, and then somehow it went into the old chick by the end of it. So that was Charles Lee Ray running around with the other doll. I just didn't make any sense of that. I can't make heads or tails or what's going on in this season or what's going on in this show anymore, really, because it just, things change on a dime. Things happen that have never been established before. Things happen that never get an explanation. And so I'm watching the show and I can't invest myself. There's like no tension because I don't know what the fuck is going to happen, because literally anything could happen. You could have a 50-foot Chucky walk into the show and be like, ha, we created a super Chucky, and be like, okay, I guess so. And so by the end of this episode, we're in a very strange place. It's a very strange structure for a season, to where you had episode 1 that was kind of its own isolated thing, and then right at the end of it, we get introduced to this Catholic school, this little school, reform school, whatever you want to call it, and that's the storyline, that's the setting, that's the tone we're going for the rest of the season. And now we have wrapped that up completely in this episode, and now the season finale is going to go off and be its own isolated incident, its own isolated story, isolated setting. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, aside from the fact that Chucky's still alive and they thought that they killed him, I don't really know what we're building towards for this final episode. I mean, they're going to be carrying on like life's great, and then Chucky's going to show up. And so unless they have some giant surprises in store for us, which I'm sure they have at least a few, I still don't really know what the overall story of this season was. You get the kids that Chucky was still trying to kill them for whatever reason with the limited amount of bodies that he has left, spends all season fucking with them at this school, and now you have these accomplices coming in trying to shift bodies over, and now he's going to go with the one body, presumably, that he has left to go and try to kill the kids again in the last episode. I don't know. So, I don't know. Those are questions I won't be able to answer, or anything I can't give context to until I see the final episode. But I don't feel ramped up for anything. And I hate being that negative on it. I really do. I mean, I'm mixed, but I hate being even that negative on it, to where I really wish that I could just be one of the people that's loving this season. I really wish I could. You know, I really enjoyed last season. I wish I could have that feeling back. But just this season, to me, has been a giant misfire so far. Some good stuff here and there. I definitely like a lot of elements to it, but there's even more elements to it that I'm confused by, that I'm turned off by, that I'm bewildered at. And this episode, unfortunately, did nothing to change that. I didn't expect it to. So, par for the course for season 2, I guess. That's kind of where I land on it. Well, that's it for this one, guys. If you enjoyed this, please click over here for the rest of my coverage on this show. And also, I'm going to put my tier list up here of the Child's Play movies. And be sure to like, share, and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss my review of the finale and then overall review of season 2 as it comes to a close next week. Thank you so much for watching, and remember, opinions are like assholes, but that doesn't mean you have to be.